So let's get into it. I'm just going to go over a brief seasonal history. So was anyone here actually ski touring in October?
No, I don't know.
A couple of hands. Yeah, definitely snowed in October. I feel like it was the first Halloween I've seen snow in a long time. But then Halloween evening, it started to rain. That snow pretty much melted out. And that rain kind of continued throughout November. We had some pretty mild temperatures. Start of December, end of November was pretty dry. Not a ton of snowfall. There were looming threats of a cold snap, and none of us were acclimatized and weren't prepared for it. But yeah, that didn't last super long. There were a few days of colder weather, but it wasn't a total cold snap. And then up until today, last night you guys probably, if you stepped outside your house around 9 p.m., you probably saw a lot of clear POW in town. And we were really crossing our fingers, hoping that it was snowing up high in the tree line Alpine, and we were not in town. This is just a graph of our seasonal average temperature. So that red line at the top is our average max daily temp. The blue line is the daily low, and then that black line is just the daily average. So kind of like what I was talking about, or through November, we had pretty mild temps. Everything was kind of just above or below zero, not much fluctuation. And then as we got towards December, that mini cold snap, and then up until today, things are getting kind of mild again. Things are kind of poking up above zero. This is our seasonal average and cumulative HN24 is amount of snowfall in 24 hours. So those darker blue graphs are kind of the daily totals of snowfall. So yeah, again, through November, not a ton of snow. We had 1 or 2 days with a decent amount of, snowfall, I guess. And then as November came to an end, we started to get a few more little storms. Start of December looked a little dry, a few more, small storm events, and then this is accurate to today, so we have that dark blue graph spiking up because, we're crossing our fingers for some snow. This is the Morrissey Ridge snow water equivalent chart. So I promise, I won't bore you guys with too many graphs. This is kind of the last one. Snow water equivalent is really just how much liquid is in the snowpack. So when precip falls out of the sky, it can either be rain, it can be snow, but that has a certain amount of water in it, amount of millimeters. So the snow water equivalent is how much actual liquid is in the snowpack. So that green, sorry, I tried to blow it up so you guys could see it. It's a little grainy, but that lighter green line is our 30-year average for snow water equivalent, and that black line is our present snow water equivalent, this year's amount. So yeah, start of the season, it looks like we were doing pretty good. We were above our 30-year average, and then kind of dry throughout November, and it looks like in the last day, we kind of got a little mini spike, and we're kind of getting back up to average amounts of liquid from the sky. So our first field week was last week. We tried to get a bunch of data, but I'm sure you guys have realized there's not a lot of snow at lower elevations, which makes access to the backcountry a little tricky. So we did our best. We tried to go around and get just a really good idea of initial observations to start off the season. And what we found was that in all of our forecasting areas, the snowpack structure was actually quite similar. The only real difference was the depth. So we were seeing everything from 50 cms in Elkford up to 1.20 meters in the Lizard Range. We didn't actually go to the Crow's Nest Pass because 40 centimeters doesn't sound like it's maybe worth going to. With that early season snow we had in October, followed by the warm and wet we had in November, temperatures dipped a bit, and that created a big crust. So we call that a melt freeze crust. And that's kind of the base of our snowpack. The foundation of the snowpack all over our forecasting region is this nice, thick, refrozen crust. On top of that foundation, we have a series of storm layers. We had those storms kind of near the end of November. That was building up our snowpack. In that, maybe we had a bit of wind as well, especially in the Crow's Nest Pass in Elkford. Things were a bit windy, so there might be some old wind slab in the sort of mid-pack of our snowpack. And now we have basically a new surface crust because it rained a pretty high elevation last night, and we'll get into it, but and then cooled down slightly, so now we kind of have a new crust at the surface. These were 2 pits that we dug last week. Again, that was the one in the Lizard Range that was 1.15 meters, if I remember correctly, and the one in Elkford was 70 centimeters. I'm only putting these side by side just so you guys can see that we do have that same crust lower down in the snowpack. And then we have the softer snow above it. And this was last week pre-storm, so we don't have that newer precip on top of it. But yeah, the structure was actually very similar. And then this was taken today. This is a little hard to see on the screen, but what we found was we had a little bit of soft snow, leading us to believe that as the storm, as that rain kind of, or I'm not going to say rain, sorry, it's depressing. As that storm left, it probably left decently cold, that we had about 2 centimeters of soft snow. Below that, we had this 4 centimeter thick crust, and then just below that, another 10 centimeters of moist storm snow. So we know that it probably was raining at some point, enough to kind of penetrate about 15 centimeters into the snowpack. This was in Portland today.
So would I do that?
Okay, so let's talk about the weather. What have we seen? What are we going to see? How is it going to affect the snowpack? So in the last 24 hours, we've seen precip, lots of it, all over our forecasting area. In the Lizard Range, I think we've seen up to 65 mils in certain areas. It's kind of dwindled. In the Crow's Nest Pass, they definitely got a lot less precip, but I think they still had up to 20 mils in precip. Less than they were forecasting, but it definitely affected the snowpack. And then looking ahead, I don't know if anyone's looked at the forecast for the next few days, but it looks like we're going to get maybe 24 hours, another 65 mils plus around the Fernie area, a little less in other areas, but again, more precip incoming. The freezing level was high last night. It got to about 1,900 meters in most areas of our the entire forecasting area. 1,900 meters is high. I think if anyone knows the ski hill super well, Polar Peak is at about 2,100 meters. And so, think about sort of top of the White Pass chair, kind of around there. So that's rain all the way up to that level. Because we have lots of rain down low, our snowpack in the BTL, the below tree line elevation, is rapidly diminishing. We are losing snow fast. So that's making access really hard. But where it is staying cold, the snowpack depths are increasing quite a lot. Think of 65 mils of water, and if that actually turns to snow, that's a ton of snow. So we can only assume that up in the Alpine and tree line, things are getting better. Or deeper, I should say. And then winds. Yeah, today we saw a ton of wind. We saw some ridgetop winds, strong winds, and that was kind of in the Flathead area. And we've got reports that Elkford and Crow's Nest, it's lots of strong winds, so lots of loose snow on the surface to move around in the Alpine and create wind slab. Okay, so today, this was just released about an hour and a half ago. This is our new hazard forecast going into the future. So for tomorrow, the forecast is reading high in the Alpine, considerable at tree line, and moderate below tree line. And sorry, I should point out, this is for the Lizard Flathead region. So I'm just dividing our forecasting areas into 2 separate areas because we are going to get a lot more incoming precip in the sub part of our forecasting area. And then looking forward into the week, Thursday and Friday, considerable, moderate, and then considerable, moderate, and low in the BTL. For the Elkford and Crow's Nest Pass area, we have considerable, moderate below tree line. And then looking forward into the week, considerable, moderate, and then moderate, low. So yeah, pretty elevated for the next few days. And there's actually just one problem that we're speaking about. When I showed you guys those pictures of the snowpacks, one thing we noticed last week was that our snowpack had pretty good structure to it. The only instabilities we had really been seeing up until then were sort of natural wind slabs, skier-triggered wind slabs. It was really just these surface instabilities. There was nothing in the snowpack. As much as we thought there might be something with these sort of storm interfaces, that base crust with the new snow on top, we thought something was going to happen and react there. But the snowpack actually gained structure pretty quickly. And luckily, all we're dealing with currently are these surface instabilities. So our first avalanche problem in the Lizard Flathead region is this storm slab. And we're going to be finding this at all elevations, all aspects, likely to very likely. So when I hear very likely, to me, that's a huge red flag. And up to a size 2.5. And then I kind of put this in here. Oh, I missed the S, but it's a little caveat. Storm slabs may involve moist/wet snow with possible and rising freezing levels. And then the Elkford and Crow's Nest Pass, we have a similar problem. So still a storm slab problem. Yeah, this was interesting. Yesterday it was forecasted just to be in the Alpine and tree line, but I think the precip amounts have increased so much that this is actually now in all elevations, all aspects, and it's likely up to a size 2. So similar thing, expect increased reactivity on wind-affected features. Storm slabs may involve moist or wet snow with possible rain and high freezing levels. So how do we move through this? I mean, we've had a ton of moisture, we're getting a ton more. Avalanche hazard is jacking up. I don't know, to me that sounds a little bit sketchy. But yeah, so this is what we're putting on our forecast. So conservative terrain choices while the storm snow settles and stabilizes. So it's kind of odd. I guess I should say that there is a lot of uncertainty in these incoming storms these weeks. Like no one has a clear idea of how much snow is actually going to be falling, or rain, I should say, how much precip is incoming. So just the amount of uncertainty could really change the hazard drastically. So yeah, storm slab size and sensitivity to triggering will likely increase throughout the day. As this precip comes in tomorrow, our hazard is going to go up as it adds stress to the snowpack. Storm slabs in motion may step down to deeper layers, resulting in large avalanches. I kind of mentioned that there was just a few sort of storm slab interfaces in our mid-pack. And there is a chance that if we get enough stress on that snowpack, that one of those layers might go and just create a very large avalanche. Be cautious of buried obstacles. Yeah, it's early season, and just because we have had a decent amount of precip, we still are early season, and rocks and stumps and logs and down trees and everything might now just be covered with a small little skiff of new snow on top, and they're very hard to predict, but they are there. And then, yeah, snowpack diminishes rapidly at lower elevations. I kind of touched on that. That's going to make access really hard. But in areas maybe in the higher below tree line elevation, where there might actually be a lot of snow and not just rain, the avalanche threshold may be hit. And then I need to speak to the confidence, because I kind of mentioned uncertainty a little bit, but this incoming storm there's just, so much uncertainty surrounding it. We have a little dip in the freezing level currently. It looks like for the next, maybe less than a day, we're probably going to see a drop in that freezing level, maybe down to 1,000 meters. But then over the next few days, that freezing level is going to rise again. And I think the numbers I was seeing was 1,500, 1,600, maybe even up to 1,900 meters again. So just uncertainty surrounding the freezing level. So we don't know where that rain snow line is going to end up. We also don't have, a good idea of how much precip is going to be falling here, Flathead, Crow's Nest Pass, Elkford. It's early season, and with limited access, we have a limited amount of field observations. It's really hard to get up into the tree line and the alpine and have a really good idea of what's going on in our snowpack, because travel is so difficult right now. So because of all those reasons, the forecasters have put their confidence at moderate. So forecast snowfall amounts are uncertain, fluctuating freezing levels. One thing they are confident about, though, is that the likelihood of avalanches will increase with the arrival of the forecasted weather. Incoming precip, high freezing levels, guaranteed higher avalanche hazard. That one's pretty easy to determine. So yeah, I don't know, does anybody here look at the 10-day spot weather or any sort of longer term forecasts? Have you guys? Yeah, I definitely do. I just want to say one quick thing about those. When we look at something like this, I looked at the end of the 10-day spot forecast today, and it said something crazy like we're going to be getting 250 mils, 300 and some mils by next Friday, and the freezing levels are this and that. And it is so hard to predict that this far out. If you do ever look at a 10-day forecast, just know that they're so great for predicting trends of what we are going to see with the weather, but the actual numbers aren't very reliable. So when I pull up the 10-day, this is what I see. One thing that I know is that I see a lot of precip at the bottom, so I know that we are just going to be getting precip for the next week. It might be hopefully snow, Might be some rain because I am looking up here and noticing that the temperature is kind of dipping above and below zero, but staying relatively mild kind of until later next week. So when I'm looking at this, I see increased freezing levels, again, an increased precip. So I just know that our avalanche hazard is going to go up. So yeah, basically this is what I want you guys to take away from tonight is that we have highly variable snowpack depths, but similar structure in our entire forecasting area. Before yesterday's storm and going into this week, we had a pretty well-structured snowpack and no instabilities that really stood out to us. That crust and all the snow on top of it was bonding really well. Uncertainty surrounding the incoming storm, that seems to be the theme. Lack of field observations. It's hard to actually get into the tree line in Alpine to get some good snowpack observations. And then, yeah, more precip and those mild temps are sticking around. Yeah, if you guys are out recreating, I'm just going to encourage you, and I do this every time, I apologize, but we would really love to hear from you guys if you are out there, what's going on with the weather, with the snowpack. Main report can be anything. We find every little bit of data helpful. If you were out ski touring and you saw that all you remembered was that it was sunny, we'd love to hear that. We want to know that the sun was out and it was affecting the snowpack potentially. If you were out and it started to snow for half an hour and it accumulated a tiny bit, that's great information for us. So if you guys are ever out in the backcountry, feel free to post them in. We really love it, especially early season. They're more important than ever. And that's it. Thank you guys.
Thanks, Olivia. Does anyone have any questions for Olivia while we have her based on what she said this evening? No? Has anyone been out this week and have any information that they want to share? That maybe they didn't post in the report? Ooh, tumbleweed. Sweet, we're going to have a quick 10-15 minute break, grab yourself another drink, and we'll head back and we'll have Robin after the break. Been here a while, and you know this one. So, next up we've got Robin Siggers. Robin Siggers is the Senior Advisor of Outdoor Operations at Fernie Alpine Resort. He has been working in the Avalanche industry since 1979, so it is definitely well worth listening to. Through that time, he has taught for the Canadian Avalanche Association. He's worked in the Avalanche Forecaster and has served on the board at the CAA. He's also still an avid member of the Backcountry Recreationalists. And he's going to talk about your brain on POW and how you're making critical decisions. Let's welcome Robin.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the State of the Snowpack people for organizing these events and putting them together. It's a great way to share some information on what's happening here. Let's see if I can make work some of this stuff. Okay, so cue the music. Okay, we're traveling into another dimension, not of sight or sound, but of mind and risk. The world of snow hides secrets and confidence cloud reason. So anyway, something like that. That's a little. I'm going to talk to you tonight about your brain on how. What are you thinking out there? That's good. I like that. Why did you come here today? What brought you here today? You want to know what Olivia had to say about the forecast? Anybody else? Why are you here? What do you think? What is your motivation for coming here tonight?
Brain more than
Pardon me?
Get your brain back into the winter
Get your brain into winter gear. Excellent. I like that. Anything else? Anybody got any ideas why they showed up? My son showed up because he brought his friends because they're trying to learn about avalanches. They want to be safe. They want to die. So what are you thinking and what do you know? When you go out in the backcountry, what do you know? And do you know what you don't know? And Donald Rumsfeld, when they were going into Iraq after they invaded Iraq, he said it's not what you don't know that's the problem. It's what you don't know you don't know. So that's the one you got to watch out for. So I'm going to try and talk about some of that tonight. So when you go in the backcountry, here you go. This is simple. This is the answer. You want to know how to stay safe in the backcountry? Here it is. It's all you need to do. You do have a lot of things going on. You know, the bulletin and the snowpack and your pre-trip plan. Hopefully you made some sort of a plan. And like when Olivia spoke about the bulletin, to me, when you're looking at the bulletin, the key points in there are the details. Not just that it's orange. You know, it's orange today, it should be good. You got to look at the detail in there. What is the avalanche problem? What aspect is it on? And the confidence is huge. Sometimes your confidence is poor. They'll say on the board, they've added confidence in there to let you know that they don't really know. So what do you need to do when the confidence is low? You have to step up your game and be more situationally aware. What I want to talk to you about is more about decisions. How do you make decisions in the backcountry? That is really the key. Snowpack and all that mumbo jumbo, what the stability is, these guys do a great job of predicting the snowpack stability to give you some idea. If it's full green, with green confidence and good confidence that you can ski anywhere, then it's a pretty easy decision. But it's high hazard and there's avalanches everywhere, size 3s all throughout the lizard range, then you're probably going to stay home. Easy decision. When you're out there in these considerable conditions and there's a lot of uncertainty and then other kinds of things. So basically, the snowpack is going to be what it is, but your safety is boiling down to the decisions you're making with your people. What are you actually doing when you're out there? And how are you processing the information? So you have this going on when you're out there as well. Not just the facts, but these are things that are unavoidable to you. Heuristics and biases. Now, feel free to stick up your hand if I stop making sense. Because that can happen. If you want to ask a question, I'm open to answer questions and hear what you have to say. So heuristics, these are mental shortcuts we use to make decisions. We have previous information, previous experience. We rely on those to make decisions. We get to a red light at a stoplight. We know to stop because we know this. These are things that we know. The biases are errors in judgment that are brought on by your wants, your dreams, your desires, and your hopes. These are things that can influence you to make decisions, and sometimes you're not fully aware of them. So avalanche decision making is made up of experience-based heuristics, previous experiences and knowledge, and outcome-based biases. What do you want to have happen? What's your ultimate goal? You've come a long way to ski that line. That's a bias. So you really want to do it, and you may ignore signs around you that are telling you that's not a good idea today. So we're going to just delve into this a little bit. So an experience-based bias is when, maybe you ski the fishbowl 2,000 foot all the time. And you have been across there and you haven't had a problem and it's always been fun. So that can create a familiarity bias. and underestimate the danger based on past experiences. And you might ignore red flags, such as snowpack collapsing under your feet, or wind loading, or changes around you that are telling you that something's not right here, but you know, I've been here before, it's fine, it'll be fine. So outcome-based motivational biases, these are the ones where you plan something or you set your sights on, we're going to go ski 2001 today, or we're going to go ski the cement chutes today because we think it's fine. And you get up there and you're going up to the top and it's wind loading a little bit more into the chute. Snow's a bit slabbier than you were hoping for. When you've climbed all the way up there, you're going to ski it now. So these are the kinds of things that your brain is doing to you. You have to be aware of these things. So you can selectively interpret information based on your desires. So here's the crux. This can put you in a tough spot. Your past positive experiences, creating a false sense of security, if you don't fully scrutinize the situation. And a strong desire to achieve the day's objectives amplifies this selective perception that you create. Together, these can override your situational awareness and assessment and lead you to take more chances than maybe you should be on a day like you're out there, because you're just going with the flow and you're not being situationally aware. So there is hope. These are some of the mitigation strategies that you can employ to help you make good evaluative choices and not just rely on your instincts, your heuristics, and let your biases rule your life. And I have fallen victim to these many times. Absolutely. So some of the things you can do, and these are what professionals do. They have checklists that they go through. Like, for example, at the ski area in the morning, we go through the morning weather observation and the avalanche observations. We look around at everything. We have a checklist of things. We check the InfoX and the avalanche bulletins and the forecasts. And then we start making decisions after we evaluate a whole bunch of information. You're going on a trip, having a red light, green light, we're going to go, but if we see something, we're going to turn around. Thing we use in the ski industry and the guiding community uses a lot is called a mindset. And you might want to look into it, like check Google mindset for avalanche professionals, and they have various levels. Status quo means we're going to not do anything different than we did yesterday. Stepping out, that means you're going to move into some terrain. You're feeling better about the conditions, you're going to gradually step out into the terrain. It sets you up for what your mindset is for the day, and then that's it. You don't go beyond that. A lot of times this is designed, like I say, status quo. So when guides go out into a heli-ski area, they're going to say, this is it, these are the runs, status quo, we're happy with where we've been skiing, we're not going to explore any new terrain, because they don't have the confidence to step out into new terrain. And then you have open season, where you just go wherever. You have stepping back, when today we're taking a step back, we're not going to go where we were yesterday, things are changing. And you have an entrenchment is another mode that requires a lot of discipline. When you're in an entrenched mindset, you do that, for example, when there's persistent weak layers, a deep basal problem. Because if you trigger an avalanche, it's going to be huge. You can't figure it out. When we get into those kinds of seasons, you get entrenched. You're just not skiing the cement sheet this year. Or we're not skiing steep open faces because we get that. So those are the mindsets, and they can keep you out of trouble. You need plans that, okay, if this happens, then we're going to do this. And the other thing is, group decisions are better than single person decisions generally. We use it at the ski hill. We've got, our ski area used to be the forecaster was the only person who made the decision. That was it. You just did what the forecaster said. Now we encourage the forecasting team to discuss and debate and come up with a group decision. It's often a much better decision. And we use reflection to grow knowledge. And that's what I want to talk to you a little bit more about tonight, is reflecting on these experiences, how you can do that. You can turn a daily trip into a growth opportunity. And I have to say for myself, I've reflected on some things that I've done in the past. Maybe if I'd been more into reflection, I wouldn't have done some of those things. But if you use reflection after a trip to determine where you were on the risk scale, you're going to learn a lot more about yourself, your decision making, and you'll make better decisions in the future. So this guy, John Dewey, who was a psychologist and came up with a lot of very interesting psychological sort of phenomenons. We don't learn from experience, we learn from reflecting on experience. Simply undergoing an experience is not sufficient for true growth. A conscious effort to process and interpret and draw conclusions from the experience, that's what builds real experience. And that's what you're all here trying to get some more experience. And every time you go in the backcountry, if you reflect on your experiences, you're going to learn something. Whether you have a good experience or a bad experience, think about what happened out there and what you were doing. You'll learn more. You'll grow faster. You'll become actually experienced. There's a difference between lots of ski touring and an experienced backcountry user. So some of the mitigation strategies that continued here, the ALP truths, and that's an acronym for looking at things when you're out there: avalanche activity, loading, avalanche paths, terrain traps, rating, unstable snow, pre-committing to limits. I talked about the mindset, disconfirming evidence. Actively seek out things that contradict your overall perception of what's happening. Debrief the decision, not the outcome. So when you are debriefing and reflecting, don't just talk about the outcome. Oh, it was a great day, we skied powder. Say, well, when we skied that line down 2,000 foot, and we were kind of ended up in the gully at the bottom instead of on the rib in between, was that a good idea? Well, that maybe was something we could have avoided. These are the kinds of things you got to ask yourself. Open communication. Normalize doubt. Be okay with someone in your group saying, hey, you sure about this? What about that surfacer? What about the sun crust under the storm snow on this south-facing slope? Slow down and use intentional pause points to reevaluate, think it out. And then, the people that are the most successful are the ones that document their trips and their experiences. They do journals. People that do that really grow a lot of experience quickly. I'm not one of them, but I know a few people that do it, and they're impressive in their learning and their knowledge. And here's a few common avalanche biases. So these are the descriptions, the facets model. This is fairly common. You can Google it, look it up. Familiarity. I've ridden this slope before. It never slides. It's fine. That surface surveyor 35 down, don't worry about it. It never slides. Who's familiar with Orca Bowl? That big slope down beside the Orca Rock. I was out there one winter, or it was in the spring, and snowing every day. We were at the Thunder Meadows for like about 10 days, I think we spent up there. it snowed a lot, and we actually saw one of the biggest fracture lines I ever saw under the Orca Bowl on the south side, under the cliffs and the rocks on the south side. It was like 4 meters deep. We'd been skiing over by the Orca Rock, and without trouble. We kind of skied every day, 1 or 2 times, and that was our zone. And we're climbing up one night, and the light goes, holy, look, there's a 4-meter fracture line up there on the other side of the bowl. And we convinced ourselves that, oh yeah, like this side of the Orca never slides. Well, this morning, I think Steve Kite posted a size 3 Avalanche down there. Surprised me. So I'm reflecting on whether skiing that side of Orca is always safe. So I have some familiarity bias there. Seeking social approval, nobody wants to create conflict or, say something or harsh the vibe. But you gotta be able to speak about things in an open way. Commitment, you've gone on this trip, we're doing it. And the expert halo. Who has one of those? Anybody in here have an expert halo? I do. I'm prone to that, but I've gotten better at it. It's taken me a long time, you see, though. You guys could do it a lot sooner. Would be good for you. And then the scarcity, the fear of missing out, you see some tracks on the lower appetizers over there in the 2,000 foot. You want to get over there and get that line down, the main line on 2,000 foot. And then social proof and assuming it's safe because there's tracks over there. Like say you see a few lines on the bottom of on the appetizers on 2,000 foot, doesn't mean you should jump into the gully at the top. Other things are like extrapolating. There's case histories where Snake Ridge, people ski in Snake. It's a south-facing, pretty big slope. It looks almost exactly like 2,000 foot, but it's out 2,000 foot outside the skier boundary. Doesn't get the skier traffic. Doesn't have avalanche control. It can be a totally different deal when you get over there. And there's been people who've been ridden the full length of it and buried at the bottom of the hospital afterwards. So these are things that can happen. You have confirmation bias, which is kind of expecting to see what you want to see. Not that, you get out there and you're expecting green, it's all good. That surface area is not here. 35 pounds not a problem. You think a profile is in the wrong place and you don't find the surface ore. You dig it up on the ridge where the wind is blowing the surface ore off, and now you look over the edge and now it looks fine down there, but you drop in and the surface ore is preserved in the wind sheltered area there. We talked about familiarity, overconfidence. Who suffers from overconfidence? Anybody in here? Oh, yeah, I do. And again, FOMO. Now, reflection can help you notice some of these patterns in your thinking. If you think about your trip afterwards and you say, yeah, at that point I was kind of really feeling it. I wasn't really paying attention. I just wanted to ski it and I felt good. So, if you look at that afterwards, you might recognize that I was a little bit overconfident there. I've been on trips where boot hiking up, baking hot, sunny slope with, I know there's a rain crust down there. The foot pen is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like, but we're boot hiking up this steep slope, and I'm just praying that it's going to hang on there. So reflecting on that afterwards, it's like, yeah, maybe we should have found another way around, not boot hike up that sunny, big, hot slope. Okay, so build some personal growth through expertise, through reflection. So avalanche expertise is not just technical, it's experiential. You build experience by doing more and more things. And it's the reflection that turns that experience into usable knowledge that you're going to use next time you go there. And over time, you're going to build some judgment. good judgment, not just luck. Okay, situational awareness. This is how you have to have this all the time. You're going to go in the backcountry. You better be thinking about avalanches all the time, the whole time. You never stop thinking about it unless you're out of the avalanche path. So you're in a safe spot. You're in the cabin. And knowing where you are in the terrain. These are the big things in the field. It's always, these are the things that will change the hazard when you're out there. You're going to make your plan before you go. You can look at the conditions. But when you're out there, snow, temperature, wind. Those are the big three. Make sure you're paying attention to these. Okay, so group dynamics. These have a huge influence over what's going on. And when you go on trips with different people, is the vibe different when you go with different people? Is it like sometimes you go with an expert, sometimes you're the expert, sometimes you're the leader, sometimes you're being led? I know definitely sometimes I'm being led and not happy with what we're doing, but I go with the flow. So small groups are ideal, 3 to 4. You know, you got a bigger group, you're going to move smaller or slower. And small groups like 1 to 2, well, now you have limited capacity. Well, I'm just going to try and get the mouse here. Move my. Is there a mouse?
Yes, keep going left.
Oh, go left.
Yes, keep bringing it left.
Gonna come over here? Can you get it over here? Okay. All right, that's why we have Plan B. These are some of the things I wanted to specify. Okay. So yeah, your leadership roles. These should be clear and flexible. Like, are you the leader or not? Who is? Are you making group decisions, or is one person making all the decisions? You should know what that is. You know, what you don't want is somebody just way up front making all the decisions who does, you know, they just happen to be the fastest person. Communication. So that's why communication is really good between the group. Open communication. Use simple protocols like stop and talk once in a while. Okay, we're gonna group, you know, traveling across like the fishbowl, you're not gonna wanna group up in there under the terraces. You're gonna get to you're gonna have a good plan before you get around it. You're gonna be spread out all the way until you're on 2,000 foot if you're going across, so where you're gonna put your skis on, you take your skis off and ski down. So you're gonna have a plan before you spread out. You're gonna have good communication. And when you can't keep communication, maybe have some hand signals. I mean, there's nothing worse than going around, conversing around the gullies on 2,000 foot, and you're the last person, and everybody's around and gone and in the safe zone, and you're crossing the last gully. It's like, hey, I'm still out here. And encourage like non-judgmental environment. Somebody's like now feeling it, like listen to what they have to say. Human factors. Check each other for, you know, what are your biases if somebody's just raging on, like, we gotta get there right now and we're gonna see that no matter what. Kind of check yourself for that. Use the structured decisions we talked about. And then maintain spacing. You know, I always talk about this to spread out in avalanche terrain, not be grouped up. Spread out on the spin tracks, keep yourself spaced out. Don't be in a group. Never get more than one person caught in the same avalanche. It's kind of the motto there. Of course, you gotta work at the pace of the slowest member in the group. And then what's the emotional climate? Is everybody's like okay? Are they in the green? Somebody overconfident, or are they just on an ego trip or something like that? And check in, with each other. Your trip should align with your pre-trip. You should kind of make a pre-trip and sort of align. Are you still aligned with that, or have you completely thrown the plan out the window and you saw something you're going to go for something bigger? Like, hey, we're here, let's go do that. And you want to make sure your trip sort of works. I've been in, a situation. Oh, we're just going to go. We've done this. We went out in the background. We flew up to the Three Sisters, made a couple great runs in the powder, and then we're looking at our little plasticized map, and we're like, oh yeah, we should be able to go up there and go around there, and we end up going to circumnavigate Hosmer, but didn't really pan out. I got up there and it took a lot longer than we thought, and it got late, and then we ran into a cliff, and then we had to ski across like a 40-degree slope, and then we had to boot hike up another steep slope, and then it was dark, and then, yeah. These are great adventures, but, when you reflect on them, yeah, that was just a plan. There was no plan that went sideways. I mean, we got some great moonlight skiing and some nice powder at the end, and we all survived, but not what I would do again. Okay, so, and then have a plan for descending. When you go to descend, this is another thing I harp on people. Have a good plan for descending a run. Have a plan that you're going to stop in places in safe zones. You're going to leapfrog down a piece of terrain. Like if one person skis across the bottom and goes out, and then there's an avalanche, and they ski out and way off in the distance, and the next person there's an avalanche, how are you going to rescue them? Think about what's going to happen. What is the worst thing that can happen here? An avalanche triggers, and they go for a ride, and who's going to rescue me? Where are you on the slope? So you leapfrog down the terrain. You're watching the person skiing. Like sometimes you can all ski together. You better have your snowpack figured out pretty good if you're going to be doing that. If you're anchoring behind trees, don't just stand near a tree. Stand right beside it. And if an avalanche happens, put your head onto the tree so you don't get smacked into the tree. You guys know why concussion is called concussion? Who knows what I'm talking about? Concussion. Who knows where concussion is? Fernie Alpine Resort. It's a shoot in the curry bowl. And some fellas from here, they got up, they climbed up the saddle, and then they were, skiing the curry bowl. This is before the White House chair. And they're skiing down, and there's a bit of a transition in there. So the first person that went down, skied over the transition, triggered a slide, and managed to get himself stopped. But then there was not really a plan, this proper descent plan. So the next person, they hear him yelling down there, and there was an avalanche, watch out, there's an avalanche. So they just started skiing, triggered another avalanche, hit that person that was over the breakover, slammed him into a tree, and the second avalanche really injured him, and I guess they skied up to him, and he pretty much had this depressed skull fracture on the front of his cortex, and so they said, "You're fine." They pulled his tooth down and got him the hell out of there, and that was their escape plan. And they, took him to the hospital. He's one of the only people that ever walked into the hospital with broken, was roughed in there with broken leg twice, and a fractured skull. So he's a bit of a trendsetter. Think about the last person skiing the run too. Like a lot of times you ski down and you don't want everybody standing in the run zone watching so they can all get buried in the same avalanche. You want to ski to a safe area, but you also, the last person, you gotta think about the last person. If there's an avalanche, how are you gonna get back to help them? You only have 15 minutes at the most, so so that's where it gets a little tricky. That's why when you're leapfrogging, if one person's only halfway down, and everybody else skis, and that person then skis the last half, you can reduce your exposure by about half. So, and then emergency preparedness. You have to have a rescue plan, and yeah, you can switch it. You have to have good rescue skills, proper equipment. You have to be able to do this. You have to know how to do this. Practicing it, take the ASP courses, do some rescue training. Take a course in rescue, or just go out with your friends and practice. Set up some scenarios, look it up on the internet. It's not that hard to do a decent rescue practice. Go to the Beacon Basin at the ski hill. Be familiar with this stuff, because if you do have to dig somebody out, your friend, your partner, people have to dig out their children. It's terrible. You're going to be able to do a lot better if you practice it up. Just go into autopilot and do it. It's not that hard. And this. I'm just going to show you a video here from the Avalanche Canada, the Cherry Bowl Avalanche. It's a very famous case where people went. It's near Terrace. It's in the backcountry at Terrace. I encourage you to look. I'm just going to show you one of the videos. There's a couple more in there, and one of them talks about you're going to see there's people that were the survivors. They were in a different group, and the rescuers they are speaking about. So they're going to talk about their trip and how they were operating. See if you can identify any differences in how these people operate and what human biases might have been at play. But the other thing in that video, they talk about the rescuers. There's another short video where they talk about that they had taken an avalanche rescue course, and then when they had to do the rescue, they said it went great because we just did what we knew how to do. You can never have too much training in avalanche rescue. I just took the Canadian Avalanche Association AVSAW 2 last year, the Advanced Avalanche Rescue. Not that other than in my own backcountry situations, this is the AVSAW 2. I just took it for personal interest for the most part, because these guys do the rescues now. I'm not going to go out and rescue people, but I tell you, after taking that, I felt really resilient to anything that was going to happen. Just having done, emergency response, we did 12 scenarios, and I just after that made me feel like, okay, the next time the phone rings, I'm going to be good. Okay, so let's thank you. Set it up for me. That mouse is good. So yeah, just watch this and see if you can see the differences between these groups, the rescuers and the survivors.
Leading up to the incident, the conditions were really good for an extended period of time. We were seeing lots of really fun runs, and it was relatively stable. It had been a very high pressure system, creating lots of facets from all aspects. Makes for good skiing, but we knew that in the forecast it was also telling that was a problem.
We were aware that with new snow on the surface floor, that things were a bit touchy that day. We also had some feedback from friends who had, ski cut a few avalanches and seen some tricky snow conditions.
Before we skied, of course, we did our homework. We checked the avalanche forecast and we talked to locals.
We looked at the snow report and it was saying considerable. But for me, the word considerable was not dangerous. I don't know why. You just consider it. Oh, okay. As if it would have been a different name, maybe I would have been like, oh, shoot, I don't want to go there. But this word didn't trigger anything in my brain to be really careful.
We're really heads up going into the backcountry that day. We kind of had a loose idea to do at least a ridge walk and then peek our noses in and have a look around at the north facing goals.
We didn't have any objective as far as ski line, and we thought we might walk all the way around the ridge and right back in without ever making the first turn. We were on an extremely conservative viewpoint.
We drive 12 hours to go to Terrace. So you want to ski.
So we chose Cherry Bowl because we, right from the beginning, that was our destination.
We know the Cherry Bowl was complex terrain, but it had the right line in there that we wanted to hit, basically. We kind of thought that we were probably going to see Cherry Bowl if we like what we see.
We took a lot of care when we were traveling underneath the dome and that kind of thing. Because we were, watching the snow, watching the combat roll, seeing what would happen.
The nice thing about being out with experienced people is that you are always talking, and you're always, hey, I heard a whoop right there, or hey, do you see that crown over there? And you're trying to make sure that everybody's on the same page as you, and trying to make sure that we're not just jumping into something blind.
But really, there wasn't a lot to discuss on that day. As we were approaching, we weren't seeing any new signs of activity or anything like that.
We talked about the conditions and what people have been seeing, not just in the parking lot, but every step of the way. At all the decision points, anything like the tree line and start heading up into the Alpine, or get into relatively simple terrain and get into steeper terrain. We were talking about that stuff. Steady.
In reality, Atlanta, I skied a little faster and we moved a little ahead when we were skating and stuff. And I probably had more conversations with him than with the other two.
Usually, Matt and I are more skilled, I guess, and Nick and I are more experienced anyway.
So I'm experienced, but I've never took the lead on deciding and making decision. And so I was always kind of in the background and asking questions, but never really being involved, mainly following.
After the incident and talking to people, I found out that I was actually seen to be the leader more of the group. And my perception was that I was just one of the group.
They kind of dropped into, what we thought was a bit more of an aggressive line.
Yeah, I noticed it was a little steeper than I remembered. I kind of remember this really gentle bowl. I offered to drop over the edge and just give you a little hit right at the top, which I did.
It was solid. It was a good snow test. It was not moving, so we decided to jump in there one after another. And the line was still there after the event, so I guess it was pretty safe.
The first pitch was glorious, really. The powder was awesome, great turns, and we were all really stoked to be there.
Going into the second pitch, I remember Nick wasn't even sure about going. She asked, are we going there?
We should have kind of regrouped and thought about, okay, where do we go from here? But we just it was all great turns and beautiful snow and seems fine. So without really reevaluating, we just kept going.
So one member goes, everybody kind of has to follow. But I remember not being comfortable, but not speaking up.
But at that second tier, there was just slight hesitation on my part.
You have a plan, you have to communicate with your team members. And if you're not comfortable with it, then you have to clarify, ask questions. Is it really the way to go? Should we try something else? Unfortunately, I didn't do that on March 17th when the avalanche happened. But
so yeah, communication I think is a big one for me now. It should be for everybody. Everybody has a voice. Everybody should voice it out, no matter what.
see any differences between those two groups, the survivors and the rescuers? Just how they were operating and their mindset out there and their communication and their biases were impacting how they function? That first team, those rescuers, those guys, I encourage you to check that out online. Just go check out the Charitable Avalanche. It's on Avalanche Canada's site. It's a great example of, the subtle differences in how people operate out there and how you can potentially be a bit safer. So the takeaway here is, experience without reflection can reinforce risky habits. If you go out there and do something like circumnavigate Mount Proctor and get away with murder of your friends and think it was great because it was an awesome epic trip without thinking about, hey, there were places in there where we would have messed up big time. We were one slope releasing away from a really bad situation. So think about things afterwards. If you just think it's all fine, and I have been victim to this, I'm trying to help you. You're all a lot younger than me. If you start this process earlier, you're going to build safer habits. Experience with reflection helps you separate decisions from the outcome. So you think about, okay, what decisions did we make? Regardless of what happened out there, were they good decisions? Think about some of the biases and shortcuts and ignored clues. And that's going to help you build some real understanding and some humility that is what you need to approach backcountry skiing. When you're out in the backcountry, as soon as you're in avalanche terrain, that has to be top of mind all the time. Where are we in the terrain? Situational awareness at all times, safety measures. Those are the kinds of things that are going to help you work. For you. So yeah, let's have a wonderful, safe winter. That's all I have. Anybody have any questions? Did we lose anybody completely? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that concludes our evening, but we just want to say a few thank yous. So I want to say thank you to Olivia. Give her a round of applause. Thanks to Robin for his presentation. And then we want to say thank you to Bobby and everyone at the Central for allowing us to host this event every month. So the State of the Snowpack is going to happen monthly through the ski season. The next one we have is on January 13th, so we'll be back here at 6:30 on that day, and we hope to see many of you there. Thank you very much.